Okay, Boardrooms and Breakthroughs, the International Women's Day edition with the ladies of Crunchmoms. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Ooh, good to be here.
So we have Julie Nguyen and Ling Tay. Let's hear a little bit from you about Crunchmoms. Where did it all begin?
Where did it all begin? First of all, thank you, Rowen, so much for having us. This is our first podcast together. We're super excited. Maybe I'll kick off, and then Ling, I'd love to hear your perspective. But it started off when became a mom, just like everyone's first tagline of like everything changes in their life when they became a mom. And I think there was just nothing out there that suited all the thousands of questions that I had around motherhood and career and what to do next and how to take care of myself. And it was kind of just
I feel you.
all in your face all at once. And then you're kind of just left to figure it out on your own. And kind of just thought, how is that possible? Yeah. Surely there should be a guide or a group or someone that you can rely on to help you. So for us, it was like, how can we figure out a problem? Or there is a problem. How can we figure out a solution that we can solve ourselves rather because we couldn't find it out there?
Yeah, that's amazing. Create it, right? Solve the problem. If it exists, then...
As long as the problem's always there and you're always solving it, there's always something that's keeping us busy.
Yeah. And if when you're the user at heart, I feel like it's a lot easier to sort of build that around you. You know what the problem is. You feel it every single day. And when you try to find solutions, which what we've been doing for like 3.5 years now, it comes so naturally. And so everything that we do is done through our own experiences of being moms, being women in business, and also just trying to figure out, work-life integration. Yeah.
Work-life integration.
That's
I mean, you're speaking my language, and I want to hear more. So let's hear what a day in your life looks like. I mean, as a business owner with young kids.
So I think I will start by saying Ling and I, at the end of last year, we literally mapped out everything together about our days, which I think is super important when you have a co-founder, right?
That sounds
so
incredible.
we worked out what time our kids drop off and pickups are. We mapped out when our workout classes are and when we want to try to do our tennis or our Pilates and what time that is. We worked out when our husbands are likely to be traveling based on what we know of their schedules.
So many moving parts.
I know. And then the time that we will do deep work together. I'm a night person. Ling's very much a morning person.
Yeah.
We mapped out she's like, cutoff is 10:30. I'm like, I could keep going till like 1 a.m. kind of a thing. And so I think for anyone that's listening, if you have a partner, whether it's partner in life or a partner in business, I think mapping this out is real. I mean, there is no more of this 9 to 5 kind of roles. So if I can answer that question, I mean, I'm always working late. I'm a night owl.
Okay, so say
and I work a little, and I wake up a little bit, definitely later than Ling.
And
that's
Ling's
for sure.
Early bird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's definitely up, and I drop my kids off. Then I go for a workout, or I work depending on the day that the workout is scheduled, and then we do deep work online either together or on Slack. And I pick up my kids by 3 o'clock. I keep them late for after-school activities. And then I get home, and then they have more activities at home. And I base the rest of my afternoon on them. And then I work from home. And then I do bedtime. And then I pretty much switch on again. And then I go to bed. So that is my rough schedule.
Yeah, so I think between Julie and I, we have 4 kids. Julie's 6 and 3. And I have a 2.5-year-old and a 7-month-old. So, we work very closely together to figure out, like what she said, drop off times, when we pick up, when we want to work out, because that's really important, when we want to, feel good about ourselves as well.
Taking care of yourself.
Our kids' nap time, bath time, dinner time. So I think, we try our best to work around what happens at home and at work. And at work, Julie and I commit, right? Like from 9 o'clock, we're online all the way till pickup, which is me first at 12:30.
Like your time block.
Exactly, so we time block.
Work.
So if she picks up at 12, I will literally take over some things, and then I pick up, and then she'll take over some things.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
and so when
that's what I was going to say. It's like a relay.
Yeah, so when we time block, we start the day by saying, what are the top priorities? I think we just started that as well, right? Like between us, what are there's some things that we have to focus on to just really nail it down for this week, right? So a day in the life of our lives is so different, but I think we just communicated really well
aligned, and the communication being key.
Because there's so many moving parts. And I think what really helped us is when you run your own business, you already have so many things on your mind. So for us, by starting the day by saying, this is my list, and she's like, this is her list, and then we'll keep each other accountable. Did you get this done yet? I think helps to make sure things are moving. And then there's the task list of everything else you have to do in your home. So for example, if I have, like a kid's birthday party, she's like, go, sort that out right now.
Yeah.
She just gets it. And I think in business, you kind of have to have that word integration because it's just really difficult to do so if we're not using the word integration.
Yeah. And I also think like, the last 3 years just building this has also taught us a lot about what it means to have, a flexible schedule, right? I feel like working moms just want to make everything happen. And I think through the last 3.5 years, the word flexibility has been key to help us really do what we want to do in, our professional lives.
Well,
like
flexibility
building
means so many different things for different people, right?
Exactly. And having, that drive as well, and, having making sure that we're there for our kids when we want to, and also being there for the business and, being there together to just see something like that grow. Yeah.
True, and like obviously meeting certain KPIs that you've set for yourselves and for the business. So you've got to keep those milestones moving forward, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and it's both of us are very much both full-time, but we're also full-time in
being present
our role
with your...
as mothers as well. So I think it's full-time, but not your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's literally broken up into like the morning segment, the afternoon segment, the evening, and then the late evening.
I like this conversation because it's a deeper perspective. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, because I do find that a lot of people aspire to be entrepreneurs, and especially for working moms or moms, because we're working anyways, it tends to have this appeal because, we assume that entrepreneurship means working on our own time and flexibility. But this perspective of organizing your time and being even more intentional with it, working with time blocks, organization, sounds like you coordinate and communicate really well, like all of these things that we sometimes tend to overlook, and you're kind of always on, but in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a need for trust, and then having this transparency and this communication is really important. And I think anyone that's looking to get into entrepreneurship, yes, there's the word flexibility, but it's not as structured as maybe a corporate environment. So I think that there's definitely pros and cons. I think if you are in a corporate environment, you have the structure that you're here for, kind of roughly, like from here to here.
It depends on the entity.
But I think when you're an entrepreneur, anything can come your way. And I think it's definitely way more juggling.
And also it's about being intentional with your time, right? So I think why, we have we move fast, right? But it's also about understanding if, let's say, we have 3 hours, right? How are we going to spend it together? What's going to move the needle, right? Yeah. So it's about being very intentional when we prioritize stuff in our work life and also at home, right? Like when past 6 o'clock, what are we going to do, right? What are we going to do with our kids that would really, really help them feel like we're there, present, before at 8 o'clock, we're back online again.
Yeah.
So in order to do the 6 to 8 well, we can then focus on the 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. well, right? So it's all about just, it's a learning process. It wasn't easy, of course, right? Like first time mom 3 years ago, I was like, I want to be everywhere all the time.
all at once.
But
I remember in the early days of Crunchmoms, also just feeding my little one and also just like bouncing ideas with Ling on Slack. And so I think the evolution of our time blocking and our scheduling changes all the time. Yeah. What it was in the beginning it's very different to how it is now with 4 kids combined.
So do you kind of reassess, or have you reassessed the situation now that there are a couple more kids?
It's just organic, I think. I think organically over the years, we just understood each other. Like, if you got to go, you got to go. If you're both here now, let's be present and tackle whatever it is that we need to tackle within the 30 minutes or 3 hours that we have. But I think now that we have 4 kids, we had to maybe discuss about some things like workout, sleep, when our husbands are traveling for work, or what are important holidays that I'm going to take off, like Liying will take off for the Lunar New Year versus I will probably take off for the summers. And so I think these are just things we kind of get after a while. But in the beginning, it was
Sounds
just
like you
kind of
found
like
your rhythm as well, right?
In the beginning, it was kind of just like the trust is there, and let us figure it out as it comes.
Well, that's great. So, what has been the most challenging, you'd say, in the process of trying to figure out these days and timings and work schedules and all of it?
From my perspective, I would say that it's never set in stone, right? Yeah. There's our schedule is kind of based on our kids' new term. So with this new term and this new extracurricular activities, like my kids now have like even more activities, whereas because they're older than Liying's, maybe they don't have as many. So I'm just like, oh man, I have this tennis and this cricket to take my kid to, but I can maybe schedule some help to come in. And so I think for us, it's never set in stone. It's literally term by term. Then there's the summer breaks and the winter breaks and then the spring breaks. It's like, do you have help at that time? Let's see if we can tackle this project together. Can we send our kids somewhere to get? So I think it's never fixed. And I think that's a challenge. But we've managed to.
So I think my biggest challenge is just really managing my own headspace. I feel like, I still always want to be everywhere all at once, but it's constantly, like every Sunday for an hour, I sit with myself to really plan out my week, right? To figure out, okay, am I there for my kids? Am I doing stuff, catching up with my friends? How's the social calendar looking, right? So really managing my own expectations to be like, okay, you cannot do 10 things, in a week. Just choose 5. And be okay with it.
Resetting expectations a little bit and prioritizing.
It's constant, right? And being okay with that, right? Because, before kids, I was everywhere all weekend, like trying new things and traveling and really, doing a lot of the things that I really, really love to. Now we have to be realistic and being okay with it and being like, this is what I have right now. I love the term right now because, it's right now, I'm here. But then it opens up to, in the future, I can be doing that, right? It's constant, that small voice in my head to be like,
I kind of feel like it takes some realignment and also getting comfortable with the different seasons in our lives. I mean, I knew I experienced that with my firstborn, and I'm certainly seeing that now. I'm preparing for the next evolution. So it's maybe just staggering out, okay, this is what I'm okay with, like you've said, Liying, right now.
Yeah.
And because I think mom guilt is almost a common occurrence, it's safe to say. I think I know a lot of women, I've experienced it. It's like you feel that one is thriving and the other is still kind of, you're not giving enough and you need to do more.
Yeah.
And what would you say to someone who's experiencing mom guilt?
I think, so, I mean, we're not like experts with parents, as parents or as mothers, but I think the beauty of Crunchmoms is that we're learning from women that have different levels of experience, whether it's in career or whether it's as being mothers. And so we're always listening to women that are ahead of us and that are behind us and like in the stage of like having a newborn. And I think that's the best way that we can learn. And so I think what I've consistently heard from the group is, enjoy that time while they're young, because time will look very different as they're older. And it's not just one woman saying it. It's like all the women with older kids saying it. And so we have to remind ourselves that.
What's that saying? The days are long, but the years are short.
And it's
true. I kind of feel that.
It's true. Like decades go by so much faster with kids. And so as women, we need to plan out what we want from our lives and be as present. And I think one of our Crunch Mom speakers said it at our summit was you have to parent like you're a full-time parent and you have to work like you're full-time working and go all in when you can. And it can be overwhelming, but give yourself that grace and take time out for yourself and managing your wheel of life and your social life when you can and your health. There's so many things to do, but be fully present when you're with your kids. And it's not easy.
I mean, I'm
not going to lie. Like, sometimes I'm like, ooh, Liying's slacking. And I'm like, wait, put the phone aside.
That wheel's looking pretty busy, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like
it
suddenly
does.
what you do, and I've done this with clients as well, but we work on this coaching wheel, and it really gives them this deep perspective of the different areas in their life. And one has to realize as well, and it's almost coming to terms ourselves with the fact that, okay, we can't be hitting 10 as much as we'd love to across all axes. It's not feasible.
No.
But this is what I'm okay with
Yeah.
right now. for these things. So I will take a 7 or a 5 for this in the health arena or the business arena, but something's got to give.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
And I think one of the
people.
speakers also said it is, right now is your time to be there with your kids. If you have, for example, like you're going to be very, very busy with a newborn in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And so this is your time to be with your kids. It's not your time to be socializing and that time will come.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reminder for us, like this is all just temporary. So
Yeah.
I think we need to just kind of
give
make the
ourselves
most
some
of
grace
it.
and
always
space, I
give
like to
ourselves some
say.
grace and love ourselves.
Yeah, grace and space is my motto for this year.
I like that.
Yeah, giving yourself some grace and space. So let's come back a little bit to Crunchmoms, and I know it's one of the largest networking communities for women, like we've talked about, at all stages of their career. Explain to me, like someone who doesn't get networking, how does someone who's not comfortable with networking kind of find their space or find their rhythm in a room of plenty of new people?
Should I get this one?
Yeah.
So I think when it comes, the word networking doesn't feel as genuine. I
Authentic,
think
yeah,
it's
I get you.
making connections, right? It's being around people that are for you. And I think when it comes to networking, whether you're an introvert or you're an extrovert, you're a people person or you're a bit more quiet and reserved, when you come to a space or a place and you meet people, you just know, like, wow, these people are nice. They're givers. There's a different approach to introducing oneself. It's not like, hey, what's your name? What do you do? Where are you from? It's like, hey, I'm so-and-so. What's your story? Tell me about yourself. How long have you been here? The questions are different. And I think within Crunchmoms, I don't know if it's because of how we are or it's because of the women that we've attracted, but when women come, they're like, I feel that there's so much love, that women are giving before they're asking and trying to get as much as they can. And so I think when it comes...
the right intention.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the right intention. And then you also get that we're not just professionals. We're not just mothers. We're people.
Yeah.
So I think everyone that comes, they're just nice, kind people. And I think that's
great.
what
Yeah.
it is at the end of the day. And networking is, it's just about connections and how you can help add value to someone so that in the end you will benefit. And I think that's what makes Crunchmoms super special.
Yeah, I think a huge part about
that take.
Crunchmoms as well is that we come from a very shared experience. You know, we both want to be super present with kids and also be women in corporate, women running their own business. So when someone comes to join a Crunchmom event, there's already a shared sort of bond.
Yeah.
You know, conversations are a lot more authentic, conversations are a lot deeper where we can really ask questions on how do you do stuff at home? What's your structure at home? To like, how do you do your first hire as a business owner, right? So I think that's what makes Crunchmoms really special, where we help women really find commonalities and like same talking points of what it means to be a woman in today's world. Yeah.
I love that perspective. Exactly. The realness of it all and being able to truly connect. Because I feel you, Julie, you know, when you said about networking sounding so almost, you know, it's a little bit forced, it's a little bit trite.
It doesn't feel like, I don't know, the word networking doesn't feel authentic, but it's...
We know it's
needed.
the
word, right? That's the word.
We know
But
it's important to like build one's network, as we would say. But at the same time, it's like, well, or get to know people. But it's really the getting to know of people and like really having shared experiences, like you said, Ling, you know, and connecting from that place of resonance. It sounds like, you know, we're all in this together. Okay, let's find out about the person behind who Julie is and Ling is, and let's try and really get to know each other and approach it from a place of giving as opposed to expecting. I love that.
Yeah, and I think the word networking has this, like, build your network, as you just said, sounds very... selfish in a way, like it's about me. Whereas making connections and adding value and helping one in the end is
it's
giving
spirit
is
of reciprocity.
Exactly.
It's just like coming from a good place without any expectations. And I actually had a really good talk with a speaker last week on this podcast, and we were talking about the difference between expectations and and reality, right? That's where disappointment occurs, when people go in with these big expectations to begin with, because they're sticking a different lens on it, as opposed to just approaching it, like you've said, the community aspect and what they can do to support the group. So I really love that message.
And I think when one gives, then one is like more likely to come more often. And then the more one gives, the one they help each other. And then these women are just building such strong friendships. They're building strong partnerships together. And then there's just an amazing resource of women that are just constantly adding value in this private members group chat and offline when they see each other. And sometimes women haven't met yet, and they've already helped each other in so many ways. And when they do connect in person, it's just very special.
Oh, that's amazing. It sounds like you were saying as well, it's the different layers as well. Like there's so many different perspectives that they gather in the process. They build friendships. They might find a co-founder. They may or may not find an investor, or just simply enjoy the moment and hanging out with some great people and having a good chat and a good time, right?
Yeah, I think it starts off by being very professional, and it ends up being very social, and then it ends up being like family. And to be honest, it feels like it's a village and a community of women that are helping each other, but while also making money, while also growing their businesses.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Why not? It's organic, and it just sort of comes together. So I have to ask, how did you two find each other? Because it sounds like you have an incredible synergy.
Yeah.
You do, or?
We do. We've been getting it a lot. So LinkedIn.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So I think that's the power of making connections.
Amazing.
Is pay attention to the people around you and really get to know them. It's not about having a big support network around you, but it's having the right people around you. And so in the early days of Crunchmoms, a link survey was sent out, and the first person I called on that list was Li Ying.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And this was like before the COVID lockdown, and we chatted, and it was just like, she was adding value. So this is the thing. She's like, how can I help? What do you need? Yeah, I can do that. Or I can do that too. Oh, I have a background in growth marketing.
And ready to roll up her sleeves and support.
Exactly. And the rest of the calls that I had that day were not the same. It was, and so for me, Li Ying very much stood out. And when we started working together, we were both still working in our full-time jobs, but we were just constantly in the mode of problem solving and building. Yeah. And I think that's what I felt was very special.
And solving customer need as well, right? From a place where you, like you mentioned at the start of this podcast, experienced it yourself.
Yeah, and then, I mean, for me, I could see values were very much aligned. Work styles were aligned, how we approach adding value. And we worked for a long time before we actually met together in person. Wow. So it's kind of cool. I don't know what was.
Yeah, so
I'd
I
love
think
to hear your take.
When I moved to Dubai in 2018, and when I moved here, I was always in a tech startup world, very go, and always had a really strong support group back home in Singapore, like women in business, women starting their own thing.
Oh, nice.
And so when I moved here, I think I found it really hard to find a community that could really be open, authentic, really supporting each other. And so I chanced upon, like what Julie said, a LinkedIn post. And I was like, I want to just sign up and be a mentor and help women start their business. And that's the best way for me to meet like-minded women. Yeah. That was, I think, in 2019. I was just married then. And, being a mom was always at the back of my mind, right? And I was like, okay, I'm here, I'm expat, no support group.
I can relate to this.
Yeah.
It was special for me to see because this is all before Li Ying had the baby. Yeah. And so I had a little one at the time. So to see how building Crunchmoms was for her before and after, I feel like it's special to see.
Yeah, and just thinking about starting a family and not having, that family support group here, I was like, oh wow, I do see that, eventually women like myself would need both the whole support from work life and also mom life, right? Yeah. So I think that's how conversations really started, and I felt there was such a needed problem. It's like it was screaming at me. I was like, this is the best time for us to do something together because it's the right time, meeting the right person and going through a similar life stage as well. So
well, it's true though, because it's
timing.
like, well, who do you ask? And I think a lot of us are expats here as well. We're missing the support systems we might have had back home, our friends, our families. And so it's like, well, how do you navigate this whole new roller coaster that is motherhood or parenthood without sort of having anyone to go to for those little things like, oh, you know, my child is having reflux, or, you know, he's experiencing this or she's experiencing this. How do I cope? And it's amazing how everyone just comes together and helps out. And that's what I've really experienced as well.
Very important conversations like, how do I plan my return to work?
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
I don't know how I can, you know, set up, you know, as a first-time mom, how do you set up your return to work? How do you figure out your pumping schedule? How do you figure out the home support that you need? What are the conversations you need with your spouse who is maybe always traveling, right? So I think that was something that, you know, through Crunchmoms was so powerful, because we would always reach out to women, like what Julie said, right? Like a few years ahead of us, where we can learn and be like, how do you structure stuff at home so that you can focus?
Supports your work.
Yeah, exactly. To support your ambition and help you function and keep, you know, keep going at work.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think it was really important to look at, yes, what was the problem that we were faced with? So I was faced with a 1-year-old, and what Ling was faced with, you know, when before she was pregnant, and then when she got pregnant. But I think people kept, at least the friends around me and the family around me and the different groups, were focusing on the things that were very like temporary. Right. Like, what does that stage look like at the delivery or versus like the month after? But no one was having the conversations.
The 4th trimester, right?
Yeah, no one was having, people were talking about the strollers and the things that were literally very temporary.
Which is tactical
which
and
is
needed.
important, yes, and they would give that, but no one was focusing on the other things that were important. Like, how were you going to plan out, you know, your
frameworks,
like feeding, like once your kid starts feeding, no one was planning out like what happens to your career in the next year and how you feel, or who you can speak to down the line. How were your finances going to be around family planning and how much things were going to cost? And we felt that there were so many areas that were not getting enough attention, which is hard to figure out when you're in the middle of the chaos.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't stop at all, because that train keeps moving and you're still having to figure it out and scramble along the way. And like, it shouldn't be that we have a second kid to realize what we've learned. Like, there are a lot of things that could have been prepared beforehand if the conversations were different.
Venturing into this whole new era without any sort of guidance. And it's like you were saying, I feel that, you know, you've got postpartum support in a literal sense, you know, when you get back from the hospital, and it's focused around the very operational aspects, which are absolutely critical. And that's one whole thing in and of itself. Yeah. But then after that, I even felt like after the first trimester, the second, or the 4th rather, you would say, the 5th trimester for me became more of a challenge, because like you were saying, Julie, you know, it was, well, how do I navigate the feeding schedule now that I do need to time it with work, and, you know, the pumping schedules and all these things to integrate the two as opposed to just the one or the other.
And there's so many things that people don't prepare you for about being a parent, right? And so we have had the best parenting experts with PhDs on, you know, brain development, on screen and the effects of your child and raising them. And I think if no one is given these resources, how are we expected to kind of raise our next generation if we are not prepared? And so I think with Crunchmoms, we really sat down to understand, like, what are the things that are very, very important and that are priorities that women should know, both parents should know, families should know, and what are the things that are being discussed? I mean, I think there were deeper conversations about which stroller versus like brain development and screen and what is a good school and how do you know when to put your child into nursery and when you get help. And so I think that's what makes Crunchmoms different.
I feel like all of these challenges feel very real and hit differently at different times too.
Exactly.
So I understand though sometimes when people are quite stroller obsessed, because that was me to a point without even being able to see the wood from the trees, you know, where it comes to, okay, well, got one thing down, I've got the stroller down, but what about the next steps, you know?
Yeah.
So I do feel like, it's like you said, assisting them at every stage where they feel supported, where women can really feel like they can talk to someone about what the return looks like, what an effective, also considering the current landscape, which might not be fully conducive to parental return and a work-life balance.
At Crunchmoms, I think we take it a step further, right? Like at Crunchmoms, we identify, like what Julie said, we have like such a good base of resources, but we also help women make time for themselves, right? We help women sit down 1 hour on Zoom to look at, you know, personal finance, right? We bring in the right person to come in to sort of manage and moderate that conversation. Another one would be, you know, parenting, right? So we have someone who is, you know, a lecturer in the university come in, talk about how to understand brain development so that as a busy working mom, we know that at certain stages, it's a tantrum, but, you know, it's okay.
Well, psychological changes as well. How do we prepare for it? What's the language that we need to use, and how can we support our children in the best way?
Absolutely.
It is minefield.
Yeah. It helps to have a parenting coach. I think everyone has a life coach. Everyone has like an executive coach. But a parenting coach that you're like, you know, if you've had a long day and then you're just having a negotiation with your child about something, being able to talk to this parenting coach and be like, is that the right thing? And they can tell you, yes, you should be negotiating, because you can't just give them everything that they want, because they can't just go through life getting everything that they want. Negotiate with them so that they can learn at this age that they can negotiate what's right and what's wrong. And I think having a life coach, an executive coach, then having a community that gives you endless resources. And then what makes us different is that parenting coach. There's some well-rounded women, I will say, that are in the group.
I would think so. I mean, and it's like you said, there are different aspects. You know, you go to your personal trainer for supporting the gym, so you'd want to talk to an expert in a specific area who has that experience, or like we've done before together, mentorship circles, which are incredible. You know, people just want to pick the brains of someone who's a little ahead in their journey. Or like you said, even, you know, they might be in a different stage and have something else to offer. So I think that's a wonderful kind of collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like just one more point from my side on this is, I remember one message came in the private members group chat about how everyone's managing everything that's going on with their kids. And I think 90 women just came in giving what they do. Right. And we were all blown away by how everyone manages it. It is full time. Like I pick up my kids here and then I'm working from here. One has like a calendar that is like transparent, that is also digital. So when it's updated on her phone, it's updated on a board in her kitchen. It was the most resourceful group and so many incredible answers. And it was literally helping everyone in the group.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that's where it's special.
There's so many takeaways.
I think I've said the word special like 20 times, but I do feel it.
It is special. I feel the connection and how special it is. That's wonderful. Yeah. What I want to ask you, ladies, are maybe like 3 quick takeaways, because obviously people will discover on their own and in their own time the power of, you know, connecting with like minds. But since we have you here, I'd love to hear from you. What are 3 top tips, if you could boil it down? I know 3 is it's difficult with 3, but try 3.
I think I need a second to think. Do you have?
Yeah, I think you know, really being curious about the other person across the table. Just keep an open mind. Really get to know and connect with that person. That's one. Be authentic. When you meet someone new, try to really, you know, connect on a very, very we all have stories. Find out what their story is, right?
Yeah.
The last one is to keep it fun. You know, I feel like when you meet someone, always try to have fun with that person. And also, one thing that I think is key is to always follow up. Right? So if you meet someone really interesting that could help you in work life or personal life, follow up. Right? Very quickly send a message. And that's where, you know, that connection is really sealed, and you may never know like where it takes you.
Yeah, I think Liying's 3 tips are amazing, especially when it comes to networking and getting to know people on a deeper level. 3 tips, I'm just trying to think, just to help well-rounded. I think make time with your partner, right? If you have a partner that you're because I think the partner helps support your career, because our husbands are very supportive of our career. But also having a partner that's organized makes our lives a little bit easier. It's really funny for any of the listeners out there that are not married yet. What to look out for in a guy.
Ladies,
I'm always like,
top tips.
Yeah, I'm always like, look for someone that's organized. I was like, we were all like, head over heels in love in our 20s.
Checklist. Go for the organized guy.
Someone that is so organized and very like reliable and good at communications really goes a long way when you're juggling everything with kids. It's funny, but it's also so true. I have no idea what tip was that, the first one or my second one. That was my second one. Yeah. I would say is make time to sleep and work out, or something that is either a creative pursuit or that is either something that gives you energy, like that it's your outlet. I understand it can be hard when someone's still in the newborn stage, but just even if it's not as frequent as 4 or 5 times a week, just make some time, because it is a lot to juggle. Yeah. And if you don't, it just all kind of catches up with you. And the third is don't give up on your ambitions, because I think we often hear women of senior level, of women that are mid-career, that just thinking, is it worth it? I thought it. I remember going to my mom being like, it's probably just easier to just be full-time with my kids. Just don't give up, because it is all temporary. And I think the more that women can just remember their ambitions, what they're good at, how they can make money, they can be financially independent. And that's why we exist, is because when you're financially independent, you have a say in things more. You have more control in your life. And I think it's really important. So don't give up.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I fully respect everyone's choices. I think, my mom was stay at home, and I think that's wonderful too. At the same time, it's like if you really do have that drive and you have that fire in the belly, you want to be surrounded by, some intellectual stimulation of a different kind, then don't give up. There are so many ways to go about it, and then there's communities that people can join. There's information available online. There's podcasts that people can listen to. Hashtag, Boardrooms and Breakthroughs. But
Hashtag Beyond Careers.
Yeah, so I just feel like we're here to really support and help. And one of the things I wanted to ask you brings me back to my next question. This is a little bit of a more, I am apolitical, the show is apolitical, but I do have to ask, with, companies bringing women back to, or just people back to the office, return to office mandates full time, DEI initiatives getting rolled back. What are your thoughts on what this means for initiatives that support women, and at least even in the Middle East?
Oh, this is a big topic. Should I go first?
Okay.
I think there's been progress made. There's a lot that's happening. There's a lot of good intentions. I think oftentimes, I would say my first observation would be that if you want to be serious about DE&I and having more women reach leadership levels, that means you need to have more women at management levels, which means you have to have more women in the pipeline. It means you have to retain them. That means you have to know the cost of what it means to retain them versus recruiting them. It also means you have to have the right culture in place, the right track for them to grow. It is more than just an HR project. It is more than a group of women that are double hatting and maybe the role is secondary. It takes a full-time role, and it's not rocket science. I mean, we do it, and it takes full time of our entire team to do it. And so I think oftentimes companies think they can do it themselves, and they can if they have a full team dedicated to it. But if it is
to DE&I initiatives,
to all the initiatives, and I think I'm really highlighting here on the things for women to succeed in the work environment. There's a lot within the landscape that needs to change and to evolve, and I think to really do that, people need to be very aware of what they have in the organization and what they don't have.
Sort of a gap analysis of where they are versus where they want to go.
Exactly. And then I think really surveying the group, because I think oftentimes when women become mothers, they realize, wow, corporate is not suited. And to push for that change from one individual is not easy. And I think one of our favorite comparisons or acronyms is the 4 steps of change. When you're unconscious and you're incompetent, it takes a lot to go to the next step, to grow and evolve, to then be conscious and still incompetent. And then eventually the goal is to be competent.
Conscious competent.
In
unconscious competence.
Exactly.
You're doing it seamlessly.
Exactly, where it comes as second nature. And so I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen within individuals and within groups collectively.
Yeah, I also think, women at work now, the narrative around that has changed, right? A lot of people now recognize that women are such a vital part of the workforce, and trying to keep them and also help them get back into the workforce is very important and it impacts all areas, right? How the family is like, how, workplace cultures are built. Like, women have voices that actions that they want to do. So I think in today's world, it's very important that women, find a way back into the workforce. And it's about the company or the organization recognizing that, yes, this is what we want to do. There's a commitment to it. Have, a really good deep dive on what main challenges they are, and really working towards that, and just having that safe space.
All right. Well, with that, ladies, I know we've kind of gone right on time, in fact.
Have we?
So yeah,
This was
it
fun.
goes
It was
quick.
really special to do together.
I loved it because there's energy, and you clearly work so well together, and I can feel that, and I'm sure the listeners will hear that as well and see that. So thank you so much for your time. This is Boardrooms and Breakthroughs. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Thank you to our listeners. We try to have these conversations to support organizations and executives navigate change and build their presence in an intentional way. So thank you again.
Thank you.